Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. A collective national vision, which must be viable, inclusive and transformative, is urgently needed to unleash mining's latent ability to energize the entire South African economy. Martin Creamer joins me in studio to discuss the statement by the Chamber of Mines President, Mxolisi Mgojo. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Tracy.
How does Mgojo believe an effective vision will be achieved?
Yes, now he's the foremost miner at the moment. His voice is the loudest. And he's coming through saying we need a national vision, a collective national vision. And he's saying that to just play around with the fact that mining is the best asset in the country and the biggest asset in the country is too glib. If you want to really put that into effect, you have to give it a proper strategy. And he feels that if you get a strategic momentum going forward that is collective, that's viable, that's inclusive, and that can transform the industry, you're going to get somewhere. If you don't have that, you're not going to get anywhere. So it is the complete opposite to what we see coming through from the Ministry of Mineral Resources and the Department of Mineral Resources, which is so narrow that I think they can see through a keel with both eyes. And that is the way they've tried to develop this industry, in a very narrow way, in a very strange revenue stream coming into the department with no framework of how governance is going to be seen over the money that's collected. And the recommendations are totally unworkable and probably would not be workable on any planet, even off Earth. So it seems that what Mxolisi is proposing now should be taken seriously. And he's saying, look, we don't even want to just deal with one ministry anymore. We've got to deal with multiple ministries that are really related, not the least of these being the Department of Trade and Industry. And also, when you think of water affairs and sanitation, all these ministries need to actually collectively, and the environmental ministry as well, come together with Treasury. Because unless you can do this properly, you're not going to optimize the return from your most important industry, which is mining. If the South African economy depends on it, then do it properly. When mining does well, the South African economy does well. And when you look at the exports that mining produces, and you add semi-beneficiated products, it looks like mining actually contributes 40% of our export revenue. Now, how can South Africa consider not doing that job well? So I think people should take him seriously, and I think these voices are beginning to be heard in the key places.
And the Exxaro CEO has also come out saying that mining needs to shed its past. How does he advocate that this be done?
He advocates that the best way for it to shed its past is to reposition itself very positively, very inclusively, so that that can just be left behind us in a very way that we say we don't want to be associated with migratory labor. We don't want to be associated with the things that actually entrenched apartheid in the past. We want to move so far from that we reposition and that we are now acceptable as a legitimate and meaningful industry that can take the economy forward.
Some industry players are struggling, but it seems that Exxaro is growing. It's implementing a, I believe, 20 billion rand capital expenditure program across its mines in South Africa. What does this entail?
And this is more significant because we realize that their big expansion is in coal. Now, this is a company which has really analyzed the situation very carefully. It knows that coal is not top of the pops in the world. It knows that coal is being blamed for climate change. But it also knows that South Africa is going to be dependent on that coal for a 40-year stretch. And it has got contracts, going along that period. So to match that, it has invested in coal, knowing that the way we're going to keep these lights on is still going to be largely coal for a long time to come. But at the same time, it has gone into renewable energy itself, and it wants to go into renewable energy, particularly on a sort of a bolt-on type system, where you don't have maybe too big a sun energy situation, but you have microgrids where you can, and even where it's building its 300 houses, in the Limpopo province, it's going to have renewable energy microgrids, sun energy being used to power the homes there. So it is cognizant of the world's view of coal, and it's also dipping its toe into the renewable energy. But ahead of that is a long stretch. So it's taking this 20 billion rand and it's plowing it into coal. And you see the biggest is going into the project at Grote Geluk, where they have coal that is interesting because it can also go into steel making. It's got a lot of different uses that they've created there. But the biggest is into the thermal energy position, giving it into Eskom. And we see that, they're the biggest supplier to Medupi, and the other power stations around there that they supply, they do in a very good manner. They're thinking of possibly linking up with a IPP, which is an independent power producer. But at the same time, you see them going across to Mpumalanga and also investing in Belfast, the Belfast coal project there. But at the same time, they know that it's all very well having a coal mine, but the coal mine has to have logistics because that coal has to move into the market. So it has struck a deal, a good one, with Transnet, which also means that it'll have to plow 1.3 billion into a rapid loading system so that you could have 200 train lengths pushing that coal across Mpumalanga down towards the Richards Bay coal terminal, because as always happened with our business plan for coal, it's not only gone into Eskom, the low-grade coal going into Eskom, but other grades of coal going into that export market to make sure that we have the best of two worlds in the coal business.
And on the other side of the spectrum, Cook has put its shafts 1 through 3 on care and maintenance. What has led to this development?
Well, I look at that Cook situation and my heart is sore, because I see, the massive job loss there, totaling about 7,000. But should it have happened? Could it have been avoided? When you have a situation where so many illegal miners are going into that area, you should surely have had some reaction from the Department of Mineral Resources. They should not have been silent on this issue. They should have condemned that situation. And why should they have condemned it? And why should the National Union of Mine Workers condemn people taking food down there to feed those illegal miners? Because we lose jobs if you allow that. And this is clear, that in the formal sector we're now losing up to 7,000 jobs. If you look down at the Free State, at Beatrix West, where they've saved 1,600 jobs, is it the same? Well, I'm asking that question. I haven't heard of the illegal mining activity in that area. I also haven't heard of the unions condoning wildcat strikes in that area. Therefore, you see jobs being saved, and you can see how the owners are reaching out. They're saying, even if you have a loss this month, but over a 3-month period, you have a profit over any 3-month period, we're going to back you, we're going to keep you going. So it shows you that people are trying to preserve these jobs, aren't they? But was that same effort made at Cook? Did the nation get together and say, how can we allow illegal mining to take place in a formal mining operation that is paying taxes if it makes a profit, that giving so many jobs if it makes a profit? But we just didn't even give it the proper attention. And we didn't hear the National Union of Mine Workers condemn the illegal mining activities there. Why did they not come out and condemn that? But they are condemning the loss of jobs. But that has contributed to the loss of jobs. And they need to stand together in the formal economy with the mining companies and condemn illegal mining and expel their members who sell food to illegal mining to put money in their back pocket. And we know that that's a big business when it comes to illegal mining. That should not be allowed in future. It should be incumbent on the formal sector, the National Union of Mine Workers, AMCU, all the other unions, to condemn illegal mining out of hand in the situation, and also to make sure that if their members actually aid and abet those illegal miners, they are expelled from the union. That is the era we need to get into, because I think the good guys amongst the 7,000 people that have lost jobs there, the good guys, could bring a class action against those unions for aiding and abetting. They could bring an action against the Department of Mineral Resources for doing nothing, and the South African police. And my father was in mining, and when he used to come home and tell us about a possible retrenchment, we used to shiver and shake. So can you imagine those poor kids at the dinner table, dad telling them, look, I've just lost my job. Can you imagine them, the moms? And who has allowed this to happen? Selfish people who have allowed illegal mining to take place in those cook shafts and areas where all we've got left there now is the material on surface, saving about 132 jobs. And when that material on surface, the tailings, has been retreated, those people will also lose their jobs because it's not generating new material. So that's going to be spent in time. And, it hurts me to think that 7,000 people with 10 people dependents each, that's like 70,000 people, have been directly hurt by inaction of media like myself, not actually taking this illegal mining on and just not writing about anything else until those people are out of that mine. Because it's all very well saying, we can just overlook this because we've got gold coming from other areas, but when you see the actual jobs in this downturn in the economy, it focuses the mind. And I think that the formal sector needs to focus its mind around turning its back on illegal mining activity and not allowing it to take place, because we can see the consequences.
And what has been done to try and ease the retrenchments and retain jobs for the time being?
Well, I think that every employer, goes out of the way to try and not lose jobs. I mean, it's incumbent on the people in this economy to keep those jobs going, but you bleed as far as you can. And in this situation, we see that there was this flexibility out at Beatrix West, where, they're not saying if you lose next month, you're out of here. But they're giving you like a flexibility and a pragmatic approach of 3 months at a time, and then saying, look, if it persists, if these losses persist, we're going to have to close these. But they also make the point that you need to come to the party about focusing your mind, about cutting costs. You need to come to the party around productivity, because our productivity is abysmal, compared to other jurisdictions. If you compare our productivity with other jurisdictions, we're way down the line. So we need to up our game. And maybe when there is a really dire situation like we're seeing at Beatrix West, people will say, come on guys, let's get in here, let's do a job of work. And I'm sure if they focus their minds, a much better productivity could come out of that. Of course, you can be the best manager in the world in mining, and you can get nowhere because you are a price taker. You can't go along and say, I'm going to lift this price. No, it doesn't happen. You are a price taker, not a price maker. So you do have that constraint. The only thing you can do is cut costs and increase your productivity. And that's what they're trying to do to match this horrible downturn.
Thanks, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Tracy.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on the South African mining industry.